Awesome, thank you. So, hi everybody, thanks for joining us for our second Dover Trails and Recreation official committee meeting. I would like to go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and run this one again, and before we get done here tonight, we're going to go ahead and talk about a volunteer to go ahead and share that next meeting, and we'll go over what that entails as well. Any public comments?
As a non-secretarial type person, can we call the meeting to order? Or we can't do that without a quorum? This is just an informational gathering.
I think that's where we need the quorum, right? Is to call the meeting to order.
Okay.
And Shannon, next month, remind me that we need to put on last month's minutes so that we can approve those when we do have a quorum. Okay, any other public comments? All right, so we are going to go ahead and hop right into future plans for Horus Hill. So I know we sent out the link, to the Weston and Sampson Trails and Recreation Plan. Has everybody had a chance to kind of look through that and see what's in there? Awesome. So what I wanted to do tonight was just kind of start the conversation about what you all are picturing, that we could be doing from that plan, that we can be utilizing the land at Horus Hill. So I'm just going to go ahead and open it up. If you have some comments, feel free to raise your hand, and I'll let you do some talking. So does anybody have any ideas about Horus Hill?
I have a sort of secondary thought about it, about the parking area, the land is for sale. So if that's off topic, we could table it, but the idea of getting that as an arrival parking area to supplement Horus Hill, is that a valid part of this topic?
Yes and no. So that's actually probably a whole other conversation, just because number one, we would still need to go to the select board to get approval to purchase that property, right? So we don't even, I don't want to make plans for that until we have a better idea of whether or not we're going to be able to acquire it. Secondly, in my mind, I see that land being more valuable to us if it's not 100% supplemental parking, right? Like we have these other things in our Trails and Rec plan, in the master plan, that we can't put on Horus Hill. I mean, you could probably put a concrete skate park on Horus Hill, but they're going to be going pretty quick, I think. So, we have these other pieces that we need to think about where we can put them. And honestly, in my mind, that land is, I think would be best suited for maybe a skate park and some additional parking, not just all parking. So I think that's another conversation altogether. So we can go ahead and get that on a future agenda. We can talk about, kind of how we see that piece of land fitting into our overall plan, and what we want to do in terms of attacking it. That being said, I wanted to remind all of you guys, if there's ever anything that you would like to see discussed in these meetings, and that's from members and public as well, just let me know, and we'll make sure we get it on the agenda, and we can talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. Okay. Patricia, I think you had your hand up.
Now I want to ask a question. What land, like, is that where the really old tennis courts are?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so right on Route 100 there, it's really a prime piece of property. And it's something that I've been looking into. I'm hoping to take a more official approach to the board to say, if we purchase this land, here's what we could potentially be looking at in terms of development costs, whether we did do a skate park or whether it was all parking, or we just want to have more of a plan together for them before we go and ask them to purchase the land with 1% fund. So yes, that is the land.
Well, and you kind of touched on what I was going to say. So I've never really walked around Horus Hill, and I did that today, and And then when I read in the master plan about a disc park, it just seems like there's a lot of trees and, it seems like maybe they didn't walk around there when they came up with that idea, or maybe there's a part of it, I didn't go on every square inch. So maybe there's an open space, but it occurred to me that the map that I have from Southern Vermont Trail Association, it makes it look like there's a lot of open spaces, and there was a lot more trees than I thought.
So I'm sure that Jeremy will have some additional things to say about this, and I'll give him a moment to do that after I just kind of go over. So as of right now, yes, there are many trees, right? So as we look at projects where we're talking about trails going in there, or let's say kind of like a mountain bike park, or a disc golf course, I mean, that is a situation where we're going to have to give up some of that land. Again, Jeremy will probably touch on this. If we're talking about a disc golf course, then it's literally clearing lanes, throughout the property, almost like fairways, where we would be kind of clearing some of those trees out of the way and finishing it off so that it's, like basically a golf course in the woods. Jeremy, did you have any comments on the disc golf piece?
Yeah, well, just to respond to Patricia first, it's Patricia, you may be very familiar with disc golf. I don't, maybe not, I don't know, but it's not like clearing ball golf fairways. It's not like clear cutting strips. The whole point of this course being amazing would be the existing trees to stay there. I've spent hours on that property in the woods, and the cool thing is that whenever it was like harvested sustainably, however many years ago, there's like the smaller trees are the ones that would be cleared, and any good designer would want to keep trees, especially ones that look big or old. It's working with the property there. We've been at this for a while, and I don't know who all has received things, but I'm happy to send anyone links to visual representations of what it looks like. This has come up several times as, oh, does this look like a golf course, like a ball golf course? No, it's a wooded thing, and that is what New England is known for, as well as the South, and that is a specific type of disc golf that works very well in Vermont. So it would not be, clear cutting large trees. It wouldn't be like doing lumber or something. It would be small trees that have grown back since what looks like the last cut. And anything big, a designer would work around. So there's that. And there's also, at any point, the committee could ask, I could have a professional designer, the one who I would recommend, come on to this meeting and just answer any questions that you have before there's any sort of commitment. I mean, that's really easy, and that's just his time for free because he's invested in the project. And also any other materials, we've been ready for a while, and we do have to design when leaves are down and snow is low. So that's 2 points in the year, and ready to go whenever. But I do also have an announcement that I have a minimum of $2,000 and possibly $3,000 to contribute of the church's funds towards the project, just as a show of good faith. Just that I'm invested, we're invested, and our community's invested. And that is just towards the design money. And that's something I can talk about now. And whether it's 2 or 3, I can let you know at the next meeting. But that's just some things that we have going into it. And also, I think only Eric on this meeting, unless I can't see everyone, unless Sarah's on too, I think only Eric and Andy have seen, maybe Paul have seen the budget. And I was asked by Eric's predecessor to make a maximum budget. But if I would like to distribute that again to anyone who's interested, at least to the voting committee, and just, let me know if you have any questions. We've also I've already brought 4 different bids, and I've now updated those. And so I don't know who needs to see those again, but as soon as this committee's ready, we're ready to go. And we can also talk about whether the budget is what is the range of the budget, because I was told to give the maximum. So that's it.
So I think, Jeremy, what I want to do, specifically with the disc golf course, and I know that you've, I understand how long, you've been invested in the work we did with Steve, and I know that you've given the kind of talk a ton of times, but I think what I want to do is
Sure.
maybe let's plan for next month's meeting, getting you on the agenda for a chunk of time to talk solely about this project.
Sure.
What I wanted to do with this conversation tonight was just kind of see, excuse me, what people's thoughts were with, potentially having the disc golf course up there in conjunction with, the mountain bike park or the trails and things like that. And then, from there, make decisions about who it is that's going to be coming to talk to us. Because, if we do move forward with disc golf, obviously we're going to need your information. If we decide to move forward with the mountain bike park or part of it, there are organizations that would probably come and speak to us as well. So let's have the general talk tonight about Horus Hill, and then we can kind of move into future meetings to discuss, the specifics of each of those projects. Okay, I think, hold on one second, Linda. I think, Kristen, you had your hand up, or?
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm new to the committee. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
So I get to ask all the dumb questions. To me, obviously, this looks like the opportunity to do multiple things here. I haven't seen any elevation changes on it. Is that something, Eric, that we have access to? Because obviously some things are going to fit really well on a flat area where it exists. And other things could be like disc golf. Could that be something that you can actually play at elevations, And then those trails could also be used by bikes or hikers or skiers, again, based on elevation.
Yeah. So I think I can absolutely find, Shannon, we have those somewhere, right? We must have a topo of Horus Hill. Yeah, Andy's nodding yes. So
Yes.
I will get that information together and make sure that it's sent out to the group. For anybody who's been in Horus Hill, and just to kind of, clear it up for you, Kristen, I mean, we're not talking about mass flat spaces in there. There is a lot of elevation change, and it is definitely suited for a lot of things like trails, like disc golf. But again, a skate park, an ice skating rink, a lot of the stuff that's in the Weston and Sampson plan, not necessarily suited for the land on Horus Hill.
Okay.
And then Linda, you had your hand up.
Yeah, one small point. I'm assuming, and I'm pretty sure I'm right, but I'm assuming that we're talking about the Ellender property. Oh, really? You don't know it is that? Isn't that interesting? Thank you, Andy. There's an awful lot of people around my age who don't know a flying fig what Horace Hill is, but they do know what the Ellender property is, and they're aware of the terrain. The second part is that there's Act 250s up there with well clearances, radiuses of 100,000 feet or whatever. And I don't know if you've taken those into consideration, because Tara's got the wells up there and the others, and I assume you have. Otherwise you wouldn't be looking at it. That really throws an interesting crimp into some of your design abilities. So it was just a comment.
No, and that's an excellent point. I think, our main goal is to focus on, initially anyway, on pieces of the project that we can have completed without triggering Act 250. Whether that be additional trails, or the disc golf course. I mean, there are pieces of all of these projects that can be done without actually, stepping over that Act 250 line. So yes, absolutely consider that. I am looking at either Andy or Shannon. Can one of you, this was prior to my time, can one of you explain where Horus Hill came from, the name Horus Hill came from?
You want to go, you want to tackle that, Shannon, or do you want me to?
Well, the short answer is a group of similar makeup as this committee was meeting after the purchase of the Etlinger property. And there was a couple of meetings, and we had basically a poll of suggestions that went out, and Horace Hill ended up being what the majority of people voted for. And I think maybe even it was Sarah Shippey that recommended that based on the history of some of the property. So it is the Etlinger property. Those who worked really hard on the deal were very glad to stop referring to it as the Etlinger property. And so we were happy to have Horace Hill, and it was a collective decision based on a lot of trails related enthusiasts in Dover.
Can I make a comment, Eric? Most of you don't know me. Andy does, but most of you don't know the history. But I spent 10 years as the Valley Trail coordinator dealing with Etlinger. So I can understand it. But I still think that there's a public relations thing. It's either you get to explain where it is every single time, or you just put in parentheses, the old Etlinger property. So that the general public knows where the hell it is. Because it went through the newspaper a couple of times, and I'm going, where the hell is this property? What is Horace Hill? Because there really wasn't any broad press or anything indicating we decided to name this, Horace Hill. Or my memory's so short and shot to hell with age that I don't remember it. But I just, I'm not the only one. There's a whole generation, my age and older, whatever, that it helps. If you want positive feedback and stuff, it helps. So that was it.
Completely understandable. And you bring up a good point there. And it's about, kind of us getting the word out about these types of things, right? It seems like for the most part, we're really great at getting the projects done, right? We get the Valley Trail done, we get the paved section done, the lights are going up, and we do all of this really great work. The part that we tend to miss in the past anyway is telling people about it. And I think, as we move into this work on Horace Hill and further along in the conversation here, we're going to be discussing the Ridge Trail. It's going to be really important to let people know that these projects are going on and they're going to be completed, and let them know how awesome it's going to be. And then once they are completed, just really hammering home the fact that they're there and they're open for the public. So I totally appreciate your comment there. And I understand where you're coming from with it.
And let me add one more thing. There is an element, and there always will be an element of open meetings, so that people can learn about a project and see the maps and whatever. But I discovered over the years that the open meetings were too late. That information had to be out in that community before, because by the time the open meeting occurred, they either go, I'm not going, which is what happens. You get 3 people instead of 40 people, or nobody knows what it is, and so they won't respond. So, the job is really before that open meeting than it is, after.
No, absolutely.
I'll try and shut up.
No, please. I appreciate your participation. So no, I completely agree with you there. And that was one of the biggest things about us, kind of pulling together this formal committee. Even though there is a formal committee that runs these meetings, they are absolutely open to the public and they're publicly warned. And then even after the fact now, these, in addition to all of our select board meetings, are available on both discoverdover.com, which is the economic development website, and doververmont.com, which is the town of Dover website and will soon be rebuilt. So people can actually come back and watch, whatever section they can, the agenda is posted with it, so they can say, okay, I want to see when they were talking about Horace Hill, and jump to that part of the video and watch. So I think, we are working on the, kind of the public meeting part of it, where we're trying to give the public and residents of Dover as many opportunities as possible to be involved. And if they can't be involved, to listen after and educate. So I totally agree with you. You know, I think this group is intended to bring recommendations to the select board. Okay, so it's not like we're going to vote on something here and start working on it tomorrow. What this group is intended to do is for all of our collective groups, you know, whether you're representing a business or a resident of the town of Dover or stump jumpers or, you know, anybody, it's to come together to a common agreement about what we think we should be doing, and from there taking that information to the select board. Ultimately, they'll get to make the final decisions, okay? But this group will be putting those recommendations in front of them and saying, this is what we think we should be doing. So I think there's never been a better time than right now to be involved, whether you're on the committee or just attending as a member of Dover or an interested party. You know, I wholeheartedly encourage it. I mean, look at how many people are here tonight who are not, I think we have more non-committee members here tonight than we do actual committee members. So, you know, definitely encourage the public participation. And again, I really appreciate your comments and your input. Did anybody else have, we got a couple more minutes here on the Horace Hill piece. So I'm just going to throw it out there. So what I'm, in my mind, and you know, feel free to hop in if this isn't what you're thinking, but I think Patricia said it, there's a pretty healthy chunk of land up there, right? So when we look through the Weston and Sampson plan, like there are a number of these things that can be done and they can all kind of coexist peacefully within that tract of land, right? Like we want to have more trails, and as you read through the plan, it kind of talks about more, maybe some more like specifically designed trails, right? Like let's focus on all levels of participation, from, you know, just a simple walk through the woods to a, you know, a more intermediate hike to, you know, maybe some more intense mountain biking. You know, it talks about things like a mountain bike park, like what you see, you know, up on Kingdom Trails there. And, you know, again, one of the higher up pieces in that plan is the disc golf course. So I think, in my head anyway, all of these things can peacefully coexist on this piece of property. I mean, it's a good chunk of land. Does anybody have thoughts on that?
So Eric, I got one thing. So as the snowmobile representative on the committee, I just feel obligated to mention a small part of that park is a sled trail that goes down to the OMT property for access to restaurants like that and CC's. So we'd like at some point to improve the trail. It's pretty technical and windy and steep in places. So at some point we'd like to have the opportunity to straighten it out and maybe get a small machine in there. We recognize that has impact on how much land we clear and triggering Act 250 and all that good stuff. Steve Petrick's very aware of it. I'll just speak for him because he's not here. So we realize that there's a lot baked into that thought, but I just wanted to plant the seed that, you know, we want to be part of that planning, and however that fits in, we want to try and do that as well.
Yep, absolutely. And again, that's just, it's one of those things that I'm saying, like we all work in conjunction on this, right? Like we all move forward as a group. This is not like, hey, I'm going to build all my trails right now, even if so-and-so isn't ready to do that. I think because of the nature of the property and the fact that we want to use that property for a number of different things, I think we all kind of, you know, maybe not walking exactly in line with each other, but at least being pretty close. The nice thing about it is that a lot of these projects are already, you know, like Jeremy said, he's got this thing pretty much to the finish line, you know, so we can get moving with that. And speaking with Steve and the trails, I mean, we can get moving forward with those pretty quick. I'm sure that you guys can be moving forward with, you know, your trails plan here pretty soon. So I think we're all headed in that direction, and we're all, you know, again, a little further along in the process already. So I think realistically, we could get some stuff done in there with the approval, you know, of the select board. I think what I would like to see is that we all kind of make that decision to say, like, yeah, let's see what that looks like. We'll have Jeremy give us a talk about disc golf. We'll have Steve come and give us a talk about trails and potentially the mountain bike park. And you guys can let us know what you were thinking with, excuse me, a little bit of a dry throat. Let us know what you were thinking with the snowmobile trail so that we can kind of at least roughly lay that on a map to show to the select board to say, here's what our plan is for this property, okay? Here's where we want to do some disc golf, and here's where we think we can heavily focus those trails. And I think it was Kristen who said it, but or maybe it was Linda, but literally all of those things can be used in conjunction with each other, right? Like, it's not like you can't walk around the disc golf path because you're not playing disc golf. Like, you can still utilize all of those things. So I think I really like the idea of everybody kind of having that, their own things in there, but it all being, one big park basically by the time we're all done. Any other quick thoughts on Horse Hill, or if it's okay with you guys, I can go ahead and on next month's agenda we'll see if maybe Jeremy can come back and join us, and we'll have Steve kind of go over what his thoughts are on trails. I know that when I spoke to him the other day, he was working on some proposals about what he wanted to see up in there, so I'm sure that he would be happy to speak with us about that as well. But does anybody have any other quick thoughts?
I have a quick question. Aren't there already a couple of trails that are cut through there just around the bottom? And then there's like, it's bisected by, it looks like an old road, and then it gets really steep, right? So is it like the disc golf would be in on the steep parts, or more on the existing trails? Is that how it's envisioned?
Andy?
If I remember correctly, when we were developing the Trails and Rec plan, the conversations that I remember, and I'm not very familiar with disc golf, but these same concerns were raised, and basically the engineers from Weston and Sampson and Morton Trails and Jeremy's expertise with the disc golf and the information he had from designers of those courses. Basically all those folks said that if you design the trails and the disc golf at the same time, they would all be in the same space. They could all use more or less all the 50 acres. And just the way they were laid out, they wouldn't necessarily interfere with each other. So that you could have a windy mountain bike trail that connected the bottom by Route 100 with the top by the Mount Snow Golf Course and covered the whole 50 acres. And at the same time, you could design a disc golf course that wouldn't necessarily interfere with that. You're not going to have those folks, you would have folks be able to use both of those things at the same time. And the key to being able to do that, to being able to have, because the whole property is wonderful and I think could be utilized for either of these things. But the whole key to that is to design them, have a professional designer design them at the same time.
Thank you, Andy. Great question, Julia. Jeremy, and then we'll get moving on.
So I'll talk more about it later, but Julia, I appreciate the question. And the answer is yes, that it would work on steep terrain, but for anyone who hasn't spent time in those woods, as many people here have, and maybe you have, it's a very wonderful and diverse property. You have the pines down at the bottom, you have the big maple trees, but there's all these weird flat, like plateau places in there. So even on a steep thing for both the mountain biking and the disc golf, I know the part you're talking about that's steep, but even to the left of that part, there's this gradual decline. And so there's these weird like plateaus to that are really conducive to, I think, the mountain biking and the disc golf.
Thanks, Jeremy. Patricia, did you have your hand up a minute
I
ago?
did, but it's really inconsequential. I can picture where the thin trees are and where the super old growth is. And it just struck me as the bottom part. I hiked up the steeper part, but then I did the whole loop on the bottom too. And it's just so like family friendly, and like an 8-year-old who might be snowshoeing for their first time could manage that trail. And that's all I got. I can picture the disc golf though.
No, absolutely. I definitely thank my predecessor in the group that worked with him to kind of move this forward and acquire this property. It's a great piece of property, and I think by the time that we're done, with the projects on it, we're going to have an amazing asset on our hands. We already do. So it's going to be that much better by the time we get done. So I appreciate you guys' input. I think what we'll do is for next meeting, I will go ahead and get, Jeremy on the agenda, as well as Steve, to kind of talk about what the SoVTA thoughts are on trails and things in there. And we can kind of start talking about, and Paul, if you as well with stump jumpers, to talk about, here's how all these things kind of can fit together. So we can start to get a clearer picture of what that final project looks like. Okay. All right, perfect. We're a little behind, but I did just want to give an update, and Andy, feel free to hop in here as well, because definitely got this one going, or basically to the finish line for us. So Andy has asked that I kind of help to take some of the responsibilities of the Ridge Trail project from him. And for anyone who wasn't with us last time, the Ridge Trail will be located, there will be a parking lot access off of Handle Road in Westover, with a trail that leads up to, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, it's what's the lift on the south side of the mountain?
Bear Trap. It's at the bottom of the Sunbrook area.
And from there also, a fully finished trail from that parking lot all the way up to the ridge of the mountain that connects Mount Snow and Haystack. Okay, so that's just a very brief description of this project. So from there, we're going to have, backcountry skiing available, that fully machine finished trail from the parking lot up to the ridge, and then obviously the trail across the top of the ridge. So Andy and myself and Steve Petrick from Southern Vermont Trails Association met with our contacts at the United States Forest Service. This was last week. We had a discussion with them, just kind of talking about the project as a whole and what our overall plan should be, to get it moving forward. So, they did reiterate to us that they have things that in their mind are a little higher on their priority list right at the moment. But that being said, they've allowed us to kind of take the reins on this thing and say, this project is going to move as fast as you guys can personally make it move. And then we'll go ahead and just, help you with the approval process once we get to those points. So Andy and myself, as well as Steve and myself, had both had conversations about the potential of, moving forward with getting that parking lot in on Handle Road, as early as this summer, if possible. So we just wanted to let you guys know that is a possibility. I'm still waiting to hear back from, for a definitive answer on what that means in terms of Act 250, whether or not we can just do that within the parameters that we have, or whether that will trigger, a permit. The other piece that's going to go ahead and get started this summer is that Steve, in conjunction with, some trail designers, are gonna start taking a serious look about, flagging where that proposed trail from the parking lot to the ridge actually will run through that property. And once we get that piece of it done, what we can do is invite our friends from the Forest Service down to come and take a walk with us, and some other departments at the state level, to kind of look at what the impact of our trail is going to have on the property in terms of wetlands and all of those things. So it's exciting. to think that we could get this thing marked out, at least for this, to have them come down and take a look at it and just kind of get a better idea of what the final project is fully going to look like. So Steve was supposed to be here to talk as well on his piece of it, but he's not able to make it tonight, I guess. But does anybody have any questions on the Ridge Trail? Andy, did you have anything you wanted to add on the project, or?
No, you covered it well, Eric.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So were there any questions on the Ridge Trail project at this particular time?
So you said you met with the US Forest Service? That's who you met with?
Yep. Well, virtually anyway.
Yeah.
Definitely looking forward to have them down, to kind of discuss as we get a few more of these steps taken care of, to kind of discuss, what our plan to make this thing happen is going to be moving forward. They did bring up some points. If we do go ahead and put that parking lot on Handle Road there, where the trailhead would be, we do have to think about, what we can put in there for signs right now to kind of tell people like, hey, this is going to be really awesome. It's just not awesome, it's not fully awesome yet. So like, we just, we don't want to have a ton of people parking there and thinking, that's kind of the final product and heading up into the woods there. So I think, we still have some decisions to make about how we can kind of address that, but it's exciting to think that, with all the work that Andy's done and the previous trails group has done to kind of usher this project along, that we are finally getting to a point where we might be able to put some shovel in the dirt. So thank you, Andy. And, we will definitely keep you guys posted on that project as much as possible. Okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and hop into updates from our member group. So Brian, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Why don't you go ahead? I know you weren't able to make the last meeting, so just go ahead and give us a brief introduction, and then if you have any updates from Mount Snow on how your season's going.
Yeah, thank you for having me. For those who don't know me, I'm Brian Donovan. I'm the director of skier services at Mount Snow, and I've been asked to kind of be the liaison and help this committee and provide kind of the go-between between the mountain and the trails committee. And things are going well. We just announced today that we're going to extend the season another week, shooting for April 18th, which is really exciting. We're pretty confident in the snowpack, and we don't know exactly what that's going to look like for the end of the season in terms of how much terrain we're going to be able to keep open, but we're pretty confident that the snow is in good shape and we have quite a bit of it. So that was a pretty exciting announcement today. And then really, as this is my first meeting with this team, I just want to be here to kind of be the best support that the mountain can be and make sure that we support all of the initiatives, whether it be with labor or machines or just making sure that we rally any support from the mountain. So I'm here from the mountain and I'm happy to be here for whatever we can do to help support and kind of work together.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian. It's great to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having me, guys.
From the town of Dover side, I think through our conversation here tonight, you kind of see what my updates are. I will just say, again, definitely looking at bringing a proposal in front of the select board here at some point to talk about the purchase of that Route 100 land, for any number of uses. So that's kind of one of our bigger thoughts right now, but again, just working all of these things in conjunction. And if anybody ever wants to talk directly to me about what it is that we're trying to do in this department, for trails and rec and things, be sure to reach out to me. Okay. Paul, updates on Sun Jumpers. How's the snow?
Yeah, we're having a great season. So Paul Fisher, I see some new faces and names here. I'm the membership chair on the board of the Deerfield Valley Sump Jumper Snowmobile Club, and as such, the representative of this committee for snowmobiling. So yeah, Eric, we're having a great season. Mother Nature's been kind. I hesitate to celebrate too much. I feel like I'm tempting fate and I'm going to jinx it. But so far, it's been great and a lot better than past seasons. I guess I'll give you some stuff about the club. So we're being in Southern Vermont. We're one of the two biggest clubs in the state. Statewide, VAST is the statewide organization for snowmobiling. So far, they've sold about 24,000 trail passes for sleds, TMAs, they're called. And of those, we represent almost 1,400. And then the other biggest club in the state is our neighbors to the west, the Woodford Snowbusters. They're about the same size. We're always neck and neck in who's first, but also around 1,100 TMAs. So between those two clubs here in the Valley and Woodford, that's about 10% of all the TMAs sold in Vermont. So a lot of snowmobilers, a lot of traffic. So far, it's been a good snow season, a pretty good safety season, a couple issues, but we're pretty much on par for the course that way. And I guess one other thing, just as a note, we're having across the state, including here in the Valley, a few more incidents than normal of road vehicles making their way onto snowmobile trails, either out of confusion or exploration. And they always do the same thing. They get pretty far down the trail, realize their mistake, try and pull off to the side to turn around, and then they're off the trail and they're stuck. And some other machines got to come help them get them out. Sometimes it's us, sometimes it's a tow company. So that said, especially because I see a bunch of new faces, I'm glad to see so much participation here in this committee. I'm not really sure what would be of note or interest to people about snowmobiling in the Valley. So for this meeting, I just thought I'd open it to questions, anything that people think is relevant to Trails and Rec, or they want to know about snowmobiling, and that'll help guide me, I think, going forward about what parts of, we got a lot going on, a lot of projects, a lot of activities, and, incidents and stuff. So I guess, Eric, if you agree, I'll just open to questions for a minute, see if anybody has anything I didn't cover they'd like to hear about.
Do you charge people for recovery from the trail?
So officially, we will not recover a vehicle from the trail. The only equipment we have is the groomers. They're similar to like what you'd see on Mount Snow, smaller versions of piston bullies. And as an example, we had a car stuck at the beginning of this past weekend where he was blocking the trail at a time when the groomer was coming back from Somerset Reservoir and would not have been able to make it home. And it was about 1 a.m. So we used that groomer to pull him out. And he just gave us a donation. Internally, we're discussing whether we should do that at all because there's some liability issues and we're not sure if it's insured, and if equipment gets damaged, either, the drivers or ours, how that gets covered. So we'd really like to not do that. In this case, we had to because the groomer would have been stuck from going home. So we're working that out, but it's sort of a, case by case basis.
Well, that just happened a lot in Colorado when I lived there. I used to drive work at a snowcat skiing operation. So we had like the old Thiokals and all that. And we charged people $500 in the 90s to, pull them out. So
Yeah.
if they knew that, people might do it a little less. That's all I was wondering.
Yeah, there's an oops fee for that for sure.
And I think from this, Paul, and you and I have discussed this, it may lead to some even clearer signage at our trailheads to say, not just snowmobile trails, it's really all the trails to kind of say, don't drive out here.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. So I'll mention, so the one I mentioned from Friday was up on Colonial Ridge where it was a person coming from out of state looking for their Airbnb and pulled onto the trail one turn before the driveway. They just, they missed. What Eric's talking about, I should have mentioned that also. I'm glad you brought that up. So we had the exploration one I was referring to, Coily, was where the Valley Trailhead is near Kingswood, near where that power substation is, at the top of Stugger. A guy and two of his teenage kids were in a pickup and they were just looking around town. It sounded, I was actually out there for that. I went and talked to them when they were stuck. And it sounded somewhat innocent. One of the kids said, hey, the sign had said something about motorized vehicles and it didn't seem like we shouldn't go, which sounded questionable to me, but I walked back out to the trailhead and the kid was right. So Eric and I talked about it and we put up a sign. I put up a sign that says snowmobiles only. But I think part of this, and this probably is within the purview of this committee, is making sure the snowmobile club has, enough signage to make it clear. We were on the phone with the Wilmington police chief this afternoon, and I said, no signs we have are idiot proof, but we can probably do better than what we have right now. So, and that said, on that point, if anybody in this committee sees something or you hear something about confusion or about, trail markings, that's 100% me within the snowmobile club. So please let me know and, we'll get that corrected as quick as we can.
Awesome. Andy.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, Andy. What's up?
Paul, I was just curious. Have you seen a lot of non-motorized users on the vast trails this year? Have you had any issues with that, or I don't use the vast trails myself on my skis, but I have friends who do, and I was just wondering if you guys see a lot of usage on your trails, and if you feel a need for signs regarding any of that stuff. What's the deal with non-motorized people on your trails this year?
Yeah, thanks. So I can say just sort of, anecdotally, unscientifically, I've ridden a lot more miles this season than I have past seasons, partly because we've had great snow, so I've been out there a lot. I've personally done about a little over 1,000 miles of riding so far this season, mostly in the valley here. And I've been riding, so everyone knows, I've been riding in this valley for about 15 years now. This season, I would say, just like I said, unscientifically, less non-motorized traffic. So cross-country skiers, I've seen fat bikers out there, or snowshoers. This season, I've seen significantly less of that. And it might just be when I'm out, it might just be my own experience. But it seems to me there's a little bit less of that than I've seen in prior years. We have signs that say things like beware of skiers on trail. And, when we know of a spot that's a tight curve or something, we can put up a slow sign or that kind of stuff. Again, we do our best. And if somebody sees a spot that they think needs attention, let me know and we'll address it. But overall, I'd say I've seen less of it this year. And I haven't heard of any issues like, any collisions or conflicts between different types of traffic. I can just tell you in my experience, I've had 2 new experiences this year I've never had before in 15 years, where I was sitting somewhere on a sled talking, not running, and cross-country skiers came by. This was 2 unrelated incidents. And the first thing they said was, thanks for grooming these trails and making them nice. And usually in my experience, and it's when I'm moving, we slow down, most of us are responsible riders. And I'll usually get some kind of a look that they're just not happy either because we're loud or, we're breaking up the piece or making it less nature enjoyable. But for the first time this year, twice, I've had 2 different groups sort of acknowledge that we keep the trails groomed well and makes it nice for them to use. So all anecdotal, but that's been my experience.
Hey, Paul, it's Kristen. I spend a decent amount of time on the vast trails up by the golf course off on Airport Road and stuff like that. And people are super friendly. It's been, really nice, but I always find like the snowmobilers are kind of surprised when they see us. We haven't had any altercations or anything negative like that, but you and I should probably talk. There might be some opportunities just to put up a couple of signs in that area, because there are some tough intersections up there.
Yeah, let's definitely talk, and we'll take it offline. But just so everyone knows, we spend a lot of time. Most of you probably know Mike Garber. He's the vice president of the club at the moment, and he and I spend lots and lots of time trying to figure out how to address, the worst offenders. So, 99% of riders don't need signs, and the ones that are irresponsible, the sign's probably not going to help. And so could we reword signs to make people more aware of their responsibilities and cautions, or something other than signs? So any suggestions, people have ideas. We're thinking about that a lot. We're open to trying to make it even better than it is, for sure.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Paul. Appreciate speaking with us about
Thanks.
this. I think Steve didn't join us tonight, so I think we'll have to skip over SoVTA for the moment and updates from them. But I did just want to give the group a recap. So after the last time we met, and we're moving into the Valley Trail A- update. So after the last time we met, our committee members, took a look at the ready municipal project managers that were available to us from Vermont DOT to move forward with the Valley Trail A- project. And, just so everybody knows, that's the section just south of the town office that will be on the southbound side of the road. We'll cross that river and go across the property at One Bogle Road. So, I had you guys all take a look at those project managers. We did scores, and then I put your recommendation in front of the select board at our last meeting. So The highest scoring municipal project manager ended up being Fuss and O'Neill out of White River Junction, I believe they're on. Yeah, it's White River Junction. You know, they've done some really great projects all around the state. So we have sent all of our information to them, and they are currently putting together the formal proposal for us to get that project moving forward. Once we go ahead and, you know, get that through our select board and we sign on with them, that's really going to help to expedite the process, because these guys, literally, this is one of the things that they do, is they deal with pushing the paperwork through and completing these processes in a timely manner, which is just not something up to this point that's happened with that Valley Trail A- piece. So in my talks with Ross at Vermont DOT, you know, we are still absolutely in line to get our grant money to complete the project. Just one of the requirements is that we go ahead and move forward with this MPM. So I want to thank you guys for taking a look at those available organizations and giving me your recommendation. Like I said, I took that to the select board. They were happy to see the work that the group had done, and we were able to move forward with it. So that's my update on that. Any questions on that piece? All right. So just real quick before we go. So our next meeting is going to be, you know, that second Tuesday in March is April 13th. Okay. What I'm looking for right now is, you know, a hand or something from a committee member who's ready to go ahead and take that chair for that meeting. And you and I, whoever decides to go ahead and volunteer, you know, we definitely have a meeting beforehand to kind of go over, you know, what your responsibilities are for the meeting. But does anybody feel like taking a crack at running the next meeting? I'm going to need you to not all jump at once.
Should I put names in a hat?
Yeah, I guess so. Why don't I go ahead, because we're missing a few people tonight, I guess what we'll do is maybe shoot an email out to the group and see if maybe somebody who's not here tonight would like to take that responsibility for next meeting. If nobody does, then Shannon and I will put names in a hat.
We could make Sarah do it.
Jeez, anybody who's not here.
Yeah,
Just nominate
same
Steve.
thing for the secretary too.
Yeah, right. Excuse me. So again, just want to remind everybody, if there's anything that you'd like to see on these meetings or you want us to discuss as a committee, all you need to do is reach out to me beforehand. The agendas for these meetings typically go out the Friday before. So this agenda came out last Friday, right? So anytime you want to add something to that agenda, it's just got to be well enough in advance that I can get it on the agenda before we have to go ahead and send it out, okay? Any questions at all, reach out to me. Happy to talk, okay? So with that, we don't have to adjourn because we didn't actually have our quorum to begin with.
We're not official.
We're not official, but I want to thank you all for coming tonight, and we look
Eric,
forward.
hold on. Linda has a comment, Eric.
Oh, Linda.
Yes, the plans for the section, my section of the trail, are they available to look at in your office? So that they haven't changed over the years?
You're talking for Valley Trail A-?
Yes.
Okay, so they will be. I'm actually in the process now of being back in touch with our engineers for the project to go over where the final plan was left. And then we can, you know, we can kind of get those back in place, provide them to the project manager, and then just make sure, you know, yes, the short answer is yes, they will be available to review in my office. I'll let you know as soon as they're there.
I don't think they've changed, Linda, since you saw them.
Okay, all right, that's what that was what our
yeah,
concern was.
Once we get them straightened
That's
out,
been a
we'll
bunch of
get you
years,
some.
you know. Okay, all right, that was it.
Hey, Eric, real
Yes.
quick, I'm just scrambling to open my calendar. I'll volunteer to chair the April 13th meeting.
Perfect.
I wanted to look at my calendar first and it was taking me a second, but
You're the
yeah,
man.
I'll be the hero.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, so we'll touch base before then. All right, again, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Tell all your friends, this is the place to be, second Tuesday of the month. Come and hang out with us and talk about trails, okay?
Thanks,
right.
Eric. Thanks for running everything.
Of course. Thanks, guys. We'll talk soon.